Chapter 4991. The power of the Starry Sky inheritance coupled with Kong Shinmu's breakthrough allowed him to maintain a state of being evenly matched with Deputy General Xueqi. Now, Deputy General Xueqi's power was constantly being devoured, but it did not affect Deputy General Xueqi's combat power for a while, so Kong Shinmu could not gain too much of an advantage. But as time passed, the terrifying power of Kong Shinmu's devouring power was reflected. He constantly devoured the opponent's power of the water god phantom, allowing him to develop an extremely strong resistance to all of the opponent's power. This resistance, combined with the body-refining dragon-type martial technique that he cultivated and the super-strong defensive ability of the Great Sorrow Heavenly Dragon Seal, allowed him to directly resist the opponent's attack. In the beginning, he was not very confident. But as Kong Shinmu devoured enough power of the water god phantom, Kong Shinmu's resistance to the opponent's power reached its strongest. This gave Kong Shinmu enough confidence. Therefore, the following battle began to be one-sided. Deputy General Xueqi's power was constantly being devoured to the extent that it even affected his combat power, while Kong Shinmu became extremely strong. Even if the opponent exerted all his strength, he could not hurt Kong Shinmu at all. Under the influence of the Starry Sky inheritance power, the surface of Kong Shinmu's black dragon body seemed to be attached to a layer of starlight. The appearance of this layer of starlight made Kong Shinmu's dragon body indestructible. This was the supreme celestial body of the Starry Sky inheritance power. It was one of the abilities produced by the combination of the Starry Sky runes and could strengthen the physical strength of a cultivator. Generally speaking, this method was rarely used, but for Kong Shinmu, this supreme celestial body was tailor-made. Under the state of the supreme celestial body, Kong Shinmu was completely unafraid of any attack from the opponent. Any attack from the opponent was like a drizzle to him. In such a state, Deputy General Xueqi had almost lost all threat to Kong Shinmu. Kill! As Kong Shinmu continued to devour the water god phantasm's power, the water god phantasm's body became more and more empty. The techniques and moves he executed also became weaker and weaker, making others feel as if he was an arrow at the end of its flight. Vice General Xueqi looked like he had suffered a setback. He had never thought that the situation would turn out like this. He had never thought that his moment of carelessness would give Kong Shinmu an opportunity. More importantly, who would have thought that Kong Shinmu would have such an ability to devour energy? Vice General Xueqi's complexion turned extremely ugly. He exerted all of his strength, but unfortunately, he couldn't do anything to Kong Shinmu. For Kong Shinmu, Vice General Xueqi was like a cornered beast. Even so, he was still stronger than Vice General Xueqi. After all, Vice General Xueqi could no longer unleash his full power. This was the terror of the devouring power. And this was only when Kong Shinmu was facing an opponent of similar strength as him. If Kong Shinmu was facing an opponent weaker than him, the devouring power would directly determine the outcome of the battle. Of course, he was not willing to use this method now. After all, once he used the devouring power, it meant that he would devour everything of his opponent, leaving nothing behind. This method was too vicious. For Kong Shinmu, there was no need to go to this extent unless his opponent was extremely ruthless. At that moment, Vice General Xueqi's water god phantasm became fainter and fainter under Kong Shinmu's continuous devouring. Its power was almost completely devoured, becoming a source of energy for Kong Shinmu. In the end, Vice General Xueqi seemed to have seen his final outcome. He understood that he could no longer escape death today. Hence, he finally made up his mind. I know your goal is this sovereign's heart of profundity. Wishful thinking. As soon as Deputy General Xueqi's voice fell, Jiang Shenwu felt that the other party's remaining strength had all condensed into a single point in his body, and then in the next moment, without any warning, it exploded out. Vice General Xueqi had actually chosen to self-destruct in such a desperate situation. Indeed, this fellow was a supreme god-level talisman aqua race expert and a deputy general in his army. His heart of profundity was definitely something that Jiang Shenwu needed. However, even if he self-destructed his profound heart, it would not affect Kong Shinmu and the rest's gains. After all, Kong Shinmu and the rest's main goal was to eliminate Vice General Xueqi for his identity as a vice general of the army. Although the entire Fu Shui clan had more than 10 vice generals stationed in the small world where the Iron Phoenix Fortress was located, killing one of these vice generals would greatly weaken their strength. This was the main purpose of Kong Shinmu and the rest's operation this time. As long as they could confirm that Vice General Xueqi was dead, Then they would be able to obtain sufficient rewards for this operation. Even if he self-destructed his profound heart, it would still be the same. This had already risen to a strategic level. It was no longer the same as before, where they could only exchange their profound heart for rewards by killing little guys. As Vice General Xueqi self-destructed his profound heart, he exploded into pieces. Yu Tianchong and the other two women, who had hidden themselves through illusions, had not expected this to be the final result. It seems that Vice General Xueqi is stronger than Zhao Qingtian. Indeed. After all, he is a vice general who has been on the battlefield for many years. But I didn't expect Kong Xinmu to be able to kill him. Although he self-destructed his profound heart, it can be said that he was forced to die by Kong Xinmu. I didn't think so before, but why do I feel that Kong Xinmu is so handsome now? Feng Ligay looked at the battlefield. After Vice General Xueqi self-destructed his profound heart, Kong Xinmu's black divine dragon body was not shaken at all. Kong Xinmu didn't even use any defensive means to resist the destructive power of Vice General Xueqi's final self-destruction. This made countless little stars appear in her eyes. Once upon a time, Kong Xinmu was like a little brother to her. Even when Feng Ligay heard about Kong Xinmu's deeds in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, she didn't approach him to understand him. After all, Kong Xinmu was too far away from her level at that time. But she didn't expect that Kong Xinmu had crossed so many realms in the blink of an eye, and directly stepped into the Supreme God level. On the other hand, she had only advanced from the 5th level of the Martial Emperor level to the peak of the 9th level of the Martial Emperor level. The speed of their improvement was not at the same level at all. If Kong Xinmu's improvement was twice as fast as theirs, it would be considered slow. It should be at least 2 or 3 times faster. Chapter 4992. With the death of Deputy General Xueqi, the 3 women also came out of hiding. Kong Xinmu also removed his divine dragon form and returned to the appearance of a young man in black. Feeling the scene and power left behind by the battle, it still felt unreal. I've finally reached the transcendent god level. Deputy General Xueqi is not a dabbler like Zhao Qingtian, who doesn't have much combat experience. Instead, he is an experienced veteran who has been fighting for many years. I didn't expect to reach the level where I could kill Deputy General Xueqi so quickly. Kong Xinmu thought to himself and sighed. Once upon a time, the super divine dragon was also an unattainable dream for him. However, with the help of the devouring power, he was able to reach it so quickly. It had to be said that the devouring power's improvement to his strength was too terrifying. Even if someone else had the devouring power, they would also have such a terrifying improvement, let alone him. Compared to others, Kong Xinmu's strongest point was that he had the strongest perseverance. If it were not for his perseverance, enduring endless pain and successfully practicing several kinds of body-refining dragon-type martial arts, Kong Xinmu would not have been able to reach his current level so quickly. Every time he improved, he would be standing on the previous foundation. Without the first improvement, he would not be where he was now. Therefore, if the devouring power was in someone else's body, it would be very difficult for him to reach his current level at this time. After all, before the devouring power really rose, it was not particularly strong. For Kong Xinmu, defeating Deputy General Xueqi only made his opponent feel despair. With his super strong divine dragon body, he completely resolved all of his opponent's attacks. This was the real magic weapon that won him the battle. Otherwise, a dignified army's Deputy General Xueqi would not have chosen to commit suicide by exploding his heart of ultimacy. No matter what, he had finally won today's battle. Kong Xinmu heaved a sigh of relief. Yu Tianshang and the other 2 women were also relieved. They dispersed the surrounding void and retracted the power of the 5 engraved heaven and earth holy item. To be honest, Kong Xinmu had not even seen what the heaven and earth holy item looked like, nor did he know whose heaven and earth holy item it belonged to. In any case, it did not have much to do with him. As long as he could kill Deputy General Xueqi, his mission would be completed. Kong Xinmu, you really did it. From now on, the Aquarium Army will have 1 less Deputy General. Yu Tianshang came up and said with a smile on her pretty face. It's a pity that the Fu Shui tribe has many Deputy Generals. Are the other Deputy Generals as strong as Deputy Xueqi? Yu Tianshang shook her head. Yu Tianchong shook her head. Deputy Xueqi is one of the weaker ones. Although he isn't the weakest, Most of the other deputy generals are stronger than him. There are even existences above Transcendent God Stage 7. Hearing this, Kong Xinmu nodded. He knew that his current limit was dealing with Vice General Xueqi. If his opponent was stronger than Vice General Xueqi, it would be hard to say if he could resist. After all, Deputy Xueqi's attacks were already close to the limits of Kong Xinmu's defenses. If it was an opponent stronger than Vice General Xueqi, it was likely that Kong Xinmu would not even be able to last one round. After all, Deputy Xueqi was already at the Transcendent God Stage 3. If he was at the Transcendent God Stage 4, it would be a qualitative change compared to the Transcendent God Stage 3. It was not just a slight increase. It would be normal for the power of the move to be 1 or 2 times stronger. Therefore, Kong Xinmu didn't have to think about dealing with the other deputy generals of the Water Tribe Legion. Furthermore, the death of Vice General Xueqi would definitely make the other vice generals of the Water Race Army very vigilant. It wouldn't be as easy to create an opportunity for a duel like this again. Let's go back. Right, let's clean up the battlefield first. Yu Tianchong said to everyone and then took the lead to the place where Vice General Xueqi had exploded his Heart of Profound. It was in the middle of the valley. Although Vice General Xueqi had exploded his Heart of Profound, his Transcendent God Weapon of the Water Tribe and several of his storage treasures were left behind. These were the trophies that belonged to Kong Xinmu and the others. Naturally, they needed to be cleaned up. These things were handed over to Yu Tianchong for safekeeping. After all, these Transcendent God Weapons of the Water Tribe were useless to them. When the time came, they would hand them over to the Dragon God Legion to exchange for what they needed, which was achievement points. As long as they had enough achievement points, they could exchange for cultivation resources that were useful to them. This was an excellent opportunity for them. In other words, the gains of Kong Xinmu and the others could be divided into 2 parts. One was the achievement points from killing Vice General Xueqi. The other was the various items that Vice General Xueqi had on him, which could be exchanged for achievement points. Moreover, Vice General Xueqi had a lot of things on him. As a Vice General of the Legion, he was the type of person who was very rich. It was very likely that the gains brought to Kong Xinmu and the others by killing Vice General Xueqi were not as much as the things on Vice General Xueqi's body. All of this could only be known after they went back and counted. After cleaning up the battlefield, the 4 of them did not leave too many traces in the valley. They directly turned around and flew back to Fortress Iron Phoenix. In the worldlet where Fortress Iron Phoenix was located, there was no place that was absolutely safe, except for Fortress Iron Phoenix. 2 hours later, they flew back to Fortress Iron Phoenix. As soon as Kong Xinmu returned, before he had time to hand over the trophies with Yu Tianchong and the others, he suddenly received a message. This message was sent from the middle of Fortress Iron Phoenix and directly reached Kong Xinmu's mind. Kong Xinmu, come to the Fortress Command Center. It just so happens that a blacksmith from the upper 3 levels is now a guest in Fortress Iron Phoenix. This voice was noble and warm, and it came from Emperor Shi's Divine Dragon. Although Kong Xinmu had not seen the real Emperor Shi's Divine Dragon, he could still recognize this voice. Master is in the Fortress Command Center? And it just so happens that a blacksmith is a guest in Fortress Iron Phoenix. I can take this opportunity to ask about the formless weapon. When Kong Xinmu heard this news, he immediately felt a little excited. The formless weapon was the strongest weapon in his mind. It was forged with formless crystals and could freely change the forms of various battle patterns in the weapon. In other words, it had the strongest defensive ability when one wanted it to be used for defense. Chapter 4993. After receiving the news, Kong Xinmu had to say goodbye to Yu Tianchong and the others. It should be known that there were not many blacksmiths in the entire Dragon God's clan, not to mention the blacksmiths in the upper 3 levels. Although a 7th-level blacksmith was just at the threshold of the upper 3 levels, it was probably impossible to find a blacksmith of a higher level in the entire Dragon God's clan. It could be said that this was one of the few opportunities for Kong Xinmu to forge formless weapons. If he missed this opportunity, he didn't know how long he would have to wait for the next one. It was even uncertain whether there would be a next time. Sisters, my master suddenly came to see me, so I'll take my leave first. Kong Xinmu said to Yu Tianchong and the other 2 girls with embarrassment. Oh, you don't have to be so polite. Feng Ligay smiled and said, Xinwu, just go. We'll go to the army to deal with these spoils, and you'll get half of all the merit points. This is what we agreed in advance. Okay, then I'll have to trouble you three sisters. Kong Shinmu nodded with a smile. Yu Tianchong and Gu Yuxing also nodded with a smile, and the two parties said goodbye. Kong Shinmu went to the fortress headquarters in the Iron Phoenix Fortress alone. The fortress headquarters of the Iron Phoenix Fortress was very conspicuous. It was in the center of the whole fortress, and it looked like a palace. However, this was a palace without any decoration, and it seemed to have a strong iron and blood aura. The inside of the Iron Phoenix Fortress was not much different from an ordinary city, but it had a more somber atmosphere. People came and went on the streets, including residents and dragon martial artists. The houses and buildings were all in cool colors, and most of the people were in a hurry. After all, it was a main fortress, and the atmosphere was naturally different from that of an ordinary city. Kong Shinmu didn't care too much, and he also hurried to the fortress headquarters. Although Kong Shinmu couldn't transform into a dragon and fly inside the fort, he could still use the power of the Starry Sky inheritance. With the help of some of the Starry Sky runes, his speed had reached an unimaginable level. If it wasn't for the complicated streets and buildings, Kong Shinmu's current speed would have surpassed the flying speed of many dragon warriors. This caused many pedestrians on the streets to look at his back in amazement. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? If he could reach such a speed by using his dragon movement technique in his human form, wouldn't he be as fast as lightning after transforming into a dragon? In truth, Kong Shinmu wasn't that fast. It was just that the power of the Starry Sky inheritance could be fully unleashed in human form. It was not like the power of the Dragon God clan's inherited blood, which could only exert 30% of its power in human form. This was the main difference between the Starry Sky inheritance and other inheritances. And Kong Shinmu quickly came to the fortress headquarters in the center of the entire Iron Phoenix Fortress. This was an austere place, the surroundings were heavily guarded, and there were powerful dragon warriors guarding everywhere. However, most of these dragon warriors were at the level of the Dragon King and Dragon Emperor. For the current Kong Shinmu, they were not too strong. If it were in the past, such a defense force would have been enough to shock Kong Shinmu. One had to know that the Dragon Emperor could rule a Dragon Emperor country in the Dragon Martial Continent. But now, around the fortress headquarters, even some high-level Dragon Emperors were only captains of a small guard team. It could be seen how powerful the entire Iron Phoenix Fortress was. As for these captains guarding the Dragon Emperor, they should be at the level of the Super Shenron, but they usually didn't appear in front of people. But at the critical moment, those Super Shenron experts were the mainstay of the defense of the Iron Phoenix Fortress. It was obviously impossible to protect the entire Iron Phoenix Fortress just by relying on Emperor Shi Shenron alone. Everything could only be done if everyone in the Dragon God clan joined forces. And when Kong Shinmu came to the fortress headquarters, the surrounding dragon warrior guards all looked solemn when they saw him. However, they obviously recognized Kong Shinmu. Directly, a dragon emperor came in front of Kong Shinmu and said, "Are you Kong Shinmu? Please come with me. The commander is waiting for you." "Okay." Kong Shinmu nodded. He glanced at this dragon emperor and found that this dragon emperor had the 4th level of inheritance of the dragon emperor. He also looked quite young, and the insignia on his armor indicated that he was a member of the Iron Phoenix Fortress Defense Legion. A member of the Defense Legion meant that he was not a cultivator who came to the Iron Phoenix Fortress, but a member of the Legion who had always been stationed in the Iron Phoenix Fortress. Such a person was worthy of Kong Shinmu's respect. So Kong Shinmu didn't neglect him at all and followed him all the way to the fortress headquarters. Emperor Shi Shenron was the commander of the entire fortress headquarters and had the command of the entire fortress army. But it didn't mean that she was the only supreme expert in the Iron Phoenix Fortress. When Kong Shinmu followed the Dragon Emperor all the way to a place not far away from an austere palace, he clearly felt a few vague pressures coming from the palace. Without a doubt, these pressures all came from supreme experts. It seems that now, there are many supreme experts gathered in the fortress headquarters. Kong Shinmu was a little nervous. After all, he had not seen many supreme-level super dragon martial artists. In the past, even the Super Dragon Divine Dragon was a superior existence to him. But now, he came to the fortress headquarters of the Iron Phoenix Fortress, and it seemed that he was going to see several supreme experts of the Dragon God clan at the same time. This naturally made him a little nervous. Previously, when he was in the arena of the Dragon Martial Continent, he felt that there were many supreme experts of different races watching the battle. But the situation back then was different from now. That was a public occasion under the watchful eyes of the public. But now, Kong Xinmu was going to face those supreme experts alone. He could imagine that as the new direct disciple of Emperor Shi Shenran, those supreme experts would definitely judge him. He didn't know how they would evaluate him. All of this was unknown. And what moved Kong Xinmu the most was that Emperor Shi Shenran said that there was a 7th-level blacksmith here. He was thinking, what conditions did the other party need to agree to forge a formless weapon for him? According to the consciousness of the demonic god ancestor and the black dragon, it was very difficult to forge a formless weapon, and it would consume a lot of energy. He didn't know if the other party was willing. Although Emperor Shi Shenran was the middleman, it was impossible for Emperor Shi Shenran to pay too much for Kong Xinmu. All of this depended on the situation later. Kong Xinmu, please. Chapter 4994. This Dragon Emperor probably didn't know that Kong Xinmu had just killed the Fu Shui tribe's Deputy General Xueqi. He only respected Kong Xinmu, but not at all. There was a big gap between them. However, Kong Xinmu didn't mind. He nodded at the other party and walked into the palace. Soon, he passed through the front door of the palace and entered. What greeted him was a large hall. The entire hall was filled with a murderous aura. In front of Kong Xinmu, there were a few figures full of powerful auras. The one in the center was a beautiful woman dressed in red. It was the Emperor Shi mystical dragon that Kong Xinmu had seen before. It had to be said that Kong Xinmu thought that the Emperor Shi mystical dragon was extremely beautiful. But now that he saw the true body of the Emperor Shi mystical dragon, he realized that the clone of the Emperor Shi mystical dragon was not even 1/10 of her true body. This was a true beauty that could topple cities. On her snow-white face, there was a faint smile. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, giving people a sense of playfulness. However, the strong aura that emanated from her body made people not dare to have any improper thoughts. This included Kong Xinmu. After seeing the true body of the Emperor Shi mystical dragon, although it was beautiful and enchanting, Kong Xinmu didn't have any strange thoughts. There was only respect in his mind. And beside the Emperor Shi mystical dragon, about 10 feet away, there was a middle-aged man dressed in a yellow robe. This middle-aged man sat upright in front of Emperor Shi's mystical dragon. It could be seen that he was also very respectful towards Emperor Shi's mystical dragon. His expression was extremely serious, as if someone owed him millions of gold dragon coins. Looking at his attire, he didn't look like someone from the army of the Yellow Iron Fortress. In addition, Kong Xinmu felt that this guy was too weak. He was only at the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor's cultivation. With such a cultivation, he could only be a small team leader in Iron Phoenix Fortress. It was impossible for him to be qualified to sit next to Emperor Shi's divine dragon. Hence, Kong Xinmu guessed that this was the weaponsmith on the 7th level. This was also the reason why Emperor Shi had sent him here. Beside Emperor Shi's divine dragon and the weaponsmith were some other figures. Every single one of these figures was emitting a supreme pressure. Even though they were trying their best to restrain it, Kong Xinmu could still sense it clearly. There were a total of 7 people, and every single one of them was a supreme expert. Not all of these experts were from the Iron Phoenix Fortress, but there were definitely a few experts guarding the fortress. As for the others, they might have come from other places. As for why they came here, Kong Xinmu had no idea. Junior Kong Xinmu greets Master. After Kong Xinmu entered the palace, he did not observe for too long. He immediately bowed to Emperor Shi. Kong Xinmu, you don't have to be so polite. Come and sit down. Emperor Shi's expression was rather relaxed, and he seemed very satisfied with Kong Xinmu. I just received news that you Tianchong, and the other 2 killed the Fu Shui clan's Deputy General Xueqi. You did well. It could be seen that Emperor Shi and the others had just finished talking about important matters. Now, although the entire palace was filled with killing intent, the atmosphere was relatively relaxed. Hearing Emperor Shi's words, a supreme middle-aged man said in surprise, Emperor Shi, isn't your personal disciple only at the 7th level of the Dragon Emperor? He actually killed the Fu Shui clan's deputy general? Another supreme young woman in purple smiled and said, although that Deputy General Xueqi was only at the 3rd level of the Transcendent God Realm, it was already not easy for Kong Xinmu to be able to kill him. Emperor Shi, you have accepted a good disciple. Actually, I'm not too surprised. Emperor Shi didn't seem very proud. He just smiled and said, Previously, outside the Five Extremes mysterious ice city, this little fellow already defeated Zhao Qingtian. He is the kid from the Five Extremes mysterious ice holy land. This caused many people around to exclaim in surprise. It was obvious that Kong Shinmu was only at the 7th level of the Dragon Emperor. All the supreme experts present could see this clearly. As for Zhao Qingtian, even the supreme experts who did not have much contact with the Five Extremes mysterious ice holy land knew that he was at least at the transcendent god realm. Amazing! Amazing! As expected of a young hero. The weapon blacksmith in the yellow robe looked at Kong Shinmu, and also looked a little surprised. The serious expression on his face also relaxed a little. Seniors, you flatter me. Compared to all of you, I'm just a nobody. Kong Shinmu couldn't take the praise anymore. He could only speak up and ask everyone to stop praising him. If this continued, he would be very embarrassed. Not bad, not bad. A middle-aged man with an amiable expression smiled and said, Everyone, you don't have to praise this kid anymore. We have seen many young geniuses. Don't let him be too arrogant. Otherwise, who will be to blame if he falls before he matures? Don't jinx it. The young woman in purple rolled her eyes at the middle-aged man and said, Don't talk nonsense. I think little brother Kong Shinmu is very good. I heard that Emperor Shi has accepted a new personal disciple, so I did some research. This little fellow is very powerful. I think even if you fall, this little fellow will still be alive and kicking. As soon as this was said, everyone present laughed. Kong Shinmu felt the relaxed atmosphere in the palace and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He was no longer as nervous as before. It was obvious that these supreme experts had a good relationship with each other. There was no tense or serious atmosphere, and they were all joking around with each other. That's right, Kong Shinmu, this is Master Huang Shanka, a 7th-level blacksmith. Emperor Shi didn't joke around with everyone. Instead, he pointed at the middle-aged man in yellow and introduced him to Kong Shinmu with a smile. I heard that you want to forge a formless weapon, so Master Huang Shanka came over to ask you. These words surprised Kong Shinmu. He heard that he wanted to forge a formless weapon, so Huang Shanka came over to ask him? He said that there was a 7th-level blacksmith as a guest. This situation seemed to be different from what he had imagined. It seemed that Emperor Shi wanted Kong Shinmu to come over quickly, so he changed his words. Kong Shinmu naturally didn't have any objections to this. He just looked a little confused and said, Junior Kong Shinmu greets Senior Master. Is Master interested in forging a formless weapon? Of course. Chapter 4995. Hearing Huang Shanka's words, Kong Shinmu roughly understood. It turned out that although there were very few blacksmiths in the upper 3 levels, every one of them still wanted to personally forge a formless weapon. After all, the forging of the formless weapon required the formless crystal as the core. As an ancient material, the formless crystal could basically only be obtained from some ancient supreme ruins. For example, Kong Shinmu had obtained a formless crystal this time, but it was rather difficult for others to obtain a formless crystal. Therefore, many blacksmiths had never had the opportunity to forge a formless weapon, including Huang Shanka. Obviously, Huang Shanka had heard that Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon was planning to find a blacksmith to forge a formless weapon, so she came over to ask about the situation. Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon had directly called Kong Shinmu over. If Kong Shinmu had not happened to come to the Iron Phoenix Fortress, it was very likely that Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon would have personally brought Huang Shanka to the Five Extremes mysterious Ice Holy Land to look for Kong Shinmu. In any case, Kong Shinmu finally had the opportunity to forge a formless weapon. And the formless weapon he wanted to forge was naturally at the level of a superior divine dragon weapon. Formless weapon, I have never seen it with my own eyes. It is said that this thing can transform into the form of any battle rune. I wonder if it is true? At this moment, the purple-clothed young woman chuckled. She looked at Zhang Shenwu with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. She even stretched lazily, revealing an extremely attractive figure. As a supreme and powerful dragon martial artist, the charm of this young woman in purple was no less than that of Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon. It was a pity that Kong Shinmu did not know who she was. Moreover, with Kong Shinmu's current level, he was also too embarrassed to ask who she was. Moreover, what was the need for him to ask who this young woman in purple was? On the contrary, it seemed somewhat deliberate and had ill intentions. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not ask who she was. In response to the purple-clothed young woman's question, Huang Shanka smiled and answered, Senior ZAI, this formless crystal can indeed transform into the form of any battle runes. If the material is good enough, it can accommodate 2,000 battle runes. 2,000 battle runes can be converted into offensive and defensive battle runes at the same time. As long as enough types of battle runes are accommodated during the forging process, they can be changed at will during the battle. Isn't that very powerful? The purple-clothed young woman who was addressed as Senior ZAI cried out in surprise when she heard this. She was truly a little envious. This kind of battle weapon was what she had always dreamed of, as it could be used in many different situations. Wow, Emperor Shi, this personal disciple of yours is pretty good. The purple love mystical dragon looked Kong Shinmu up and down with curiosity in her eyes. TSK, the formless weapon. To think that you would be able to obtain such a legendary weapon. Impressive. Impressive. I don't know if I should say that you're lucky or something else. The purple-clothed young woman was the purple love mystical dragon. Now she was very interested in Kong Shinmu. She looked at Kong Shinmu in all sorts of ways, as if she wanted to eat him up. However, the Emperor Shi mystical dragon's expression did not change much. She only chuckled and said, Kong Shinmu, to forge the formless weapon, you need a lot of top materials. You can talk to Master Huang Shanka and see what materials he needs. Okay. Kong Shinmu nodded. Actually, it's not that troublesome. Huang Shanka smiled and said, In my opinion, the existing main forging materials are not particularly suitable for forging the formless weapon. It's either not tough enough or not strong enough. The main thing is to find the main materials. As for the auxiliary materials, I can provide them here, and they are not worth much. What he said was not worth a lot of money, but the concept was different. One had to know that he was a 7th-level blacksmith, which was one of the highest-level blacksmiths in the Dragon Gods. How rich was he? It was absolutely unimaginable to ordinary people. Therefore, when he said it was not worth much, it was likely to be a sky-high price in the eyes of outsiders. Of course, since he said he could provide the auxiliary materials, of course, it couldn't be better. Kong Shinmu thought for a moment and said, I do have some horror metal here, but not a lot. Horror metal? Huang Shanka suddenly narrowed his eyes. This thing is not bad. If you want to forge a supreme-level dragon weapon, you need about 10 pieces of horror metal as the main material. But other than that, you need some other main materials. The so-called main materials were the materials that played the main role in the forging process. If it was forging an ordinary supreme-level dragon weapon, 5 pieces of horror metal would be enough. But to forge the formless weapon, the materials needed to forge it were naturally much more than other dragon weapons. Then, Huang Shanka mainly talked about the other main materials. The first was the core material used to neutralize the existence of various battle patterns. The amount of this material was related to how many types of battle patterns the formless weapon could have after it was forged. This material was called Dubhe Stone Liquid. Dubhe Stone Liquid was not easy to come by. It could be said to be a rather rare material. Of course, this material could occasionally be bought on the market. Basically, one portion could be bought for 200,000 gold dragon coins. To add a 4th type of battle pattern to a weapon, one portion of Dubhe Stone Liquid was needed. And to add a 5th type of battle pattern, 4 portions of Dubhe Stone Liquid were needed. The 6th type required 9 portions. To Kong Shinmu, to forge a desired formless weapon, he would need at least 9 types of Dubhe Stone Liquid. That meant that he would need a total of 91 portions of Dubhe Stone Liquid. If he wanted to add a 10th type of battle pattern, he would need another 49 portions of Dubhe Stone Liquid. It could be said that this was an unimaginable consumption. Even for a divine dragon like Emperor Shi, this was not a small number. Even if it was only 91 portions of Dubhe Stone Liquid, it would add up to a total of 18 million gold dragon coins. With so many resources, he could even unlock 3 layers of seals on a heaven and earth saint-grade weapon. This consumption was simply astounding. It was no wonder that even Huang Shanka might not be able to provide this material directly. It was because it was too expensive. Most importantly, Dubhe Stone Liquid was not something that could be bought just because one wanted it. If one only wanted a few portions, they could find a way to buy it. But for Kong Shinmu, which required a large amount of it, it was not so easy to buy it. To Huang Shanka, It was not easy to obtain 91 portions of Dubhe stone liquid. Chapter 4996. So the key to the problem now is to see how many types of battle patterns you want to integrate into the formless weapon, little brother Kong Shinmu. Huang Shanka smiled and said, logically speaking, the more types of battle patterns in the formless weapon, the better. Every additional battle pattern means that your ability in a certain aspect can reach the extreme. 9 types of battle patterns, according to my understanding, is a relatively standard number. Of course, it all depends on your own ideas. If you want 9 types of battle patterns, prepare 91 portions of Dubhe stone liquid. If you only want 8 types of battle patterns, prepare 55 portions of Dubhe stone liquid. If you want 7 types of battle patterns, you only need 30 portions of Dubhe stone liquid. You can choose for yourself. Of course, it may not be a choice, because your master set a deadline for you, which is 1 year. In the next year, however much Dubhe stone liquid you can get, I will build corresponding formless weapons for you. What do you think? The Dubhe stone liquid obtained in 1 year could be used to build formless weapons. To be honest, Kong Shinmu's heart was beating faster at this moment. If he really wanted to get enough wealth, he could sell the Starry Sky Small World and build the strongest formless weapon. Unfortunately, the Starry Sky Small World was more important than the formless weapon in his eyes. Naturally, he couldn't make such a decision. So, it was too difficult to get enough Dubhe stone liquid. Kong Shinmu didn't know how to earn gold dragon coins now. Even if he had enough gold dragon coins, he didn't know where to buy enough Dubhe stone liquid. Now I can give you a reference. Emperor Shi suggested to Kong Shinmu. There are a total of 81 Outer Realm fortresses in the Dragon God world. Now, half of these Outer Realm fortresses are still in a period of fierce fighting. As far as I know, every Outer Realm stronghold will have some reserves of Dubhe stone liquid. You can go to every Outer Realm stronghold and participate in the fierce battles with the outside world to obtain battle merits and exchange them for these Dubhe stone liquid. Hearing this, Kong Shinmu suddenly understood. This was a path that had been arranged for him from the start. Of course, if he didn't choose Emperor Shi's suggestion, then he could also choose to go to those permanent mid-level relics. However, the returns from such an operation were not very stable. If he didn't gain anything, then he might have wasted a few months of effort. For Kong Shinmu, who wanted to build a top-notch formless weapon, it was not a good choice. Sure. Therefore, Kong Shinmu didn't think much about it and immediately agreed to Emperor Shi's suggestion. Go to the strongholds in the middle of a fierce battle, earn achievement points, and then exchange them for the Dubhe stone liquid. This was a huge test for Kong Shinmu, and it was also the fastest way to obtain the Dubhe stone liquid. Since you've agreed, I'll count the number of strongholds that have Dubhe stone liquid in 3 days and give you a list. Emperor Shi nodded in satisfaction. That's right. I will also set a goal for you. 1 year later, if you can successfully obtain 91 portions of Dubhe stone liquid, I will personally give you an additional reward. What do you think? Of course, thank you, Master. Kong Shinmu nodded respectfully. Yi Futian could tell that the Divine Dragon Emperor Shi had high hopes for him. This could also be considered a test. He calculated that if he wanted to obtain 91 portions of Dubhe stone liquid in 1 year, he would need an average of 4 days to earn 1 portion of Dubhe stone liquid. That was something that was worth 200,000 gold dragon coins. For an ordinary person, this was simply impossible. One had to know that even a big family like the Gu family in the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice City had relied on Kong Shinmu to obtain more than 200,000 gold dragon coins from that sacred item of heaven and earth. The entire Gu family's annual income was probably only this much. Therefore, if others knew that Kong Shinmu wanted to earn 200,000 gold dragon coins in 4 days, and that he wanted to continue doing this for a year, they would probably think that he was crazy. But only Kong Shinmu knew that with his current means, it was really possible for him to achieve this. Because Kong Shinmu had some understanding of the value of the achievement points of the Dragon God clan's foreign fortresses. At that time, if Emperor Shi gave him a list, the people in charge of the foreign fortresses would definitely give him some face. The true value of the achievement points that Kong Shinmu needed to exchange for 1 portion of Dubhe stone liquid was definitely less than 200,000. This was a certain discount for the sake of Emperor Shi. For example, this time, he lured the enemy to kill Deputy General Xueqi. For Kong Shinmu, it was not a difficult mission. and the reward was at least 200,000 gold dragon coins worth of achievement points. Kong Shinmu could get half of it, which was about 100,000 gold dragon coins worth of achievement points. As for Yu Tianchong and the other two, each of them could get 30,000 to 40,000 gold dragon coins. This was already a very efficient way to earn money for them. But for Kong Shinmu, he could do it faster. After all, the Iron Phoenix Fortress was no longer in a period of fierce fighting, while the other foreign fortresses were still in a state of fierce fighting. In that state, it would be very dangerous to go there to train and kill the enemy, but the reward would be much easier than here. With Kong Shinmu's current cultivation of the 7th level of the Dragon Emperor, as long as he acted carefully, he could basically lure and kill many Super Dragon level experts in many places. If Kong Shinmu killed a person at the level of Deputy General Xueqi alone, he could naturally exchange for one portion of Dubhe Stone liquid. Every 4 days, kill a person at the level of Deputy General Xueqi. Thinking of this, Kong Shinmu couldn't help but rub his head. This kind of thing might be possible at the beginning, but over time when the enemy was on guard, it would not be so easy for him to quickly kill the enemy. It could be imagined that the armies of the 4 major races attacking the Dragon God clan's foreign fortresses would definitely have some contact with each other. It was very likely that Kong Shinmu only killed 2 or 3 opponents at the level of Deputy General Xueqi before the other side realized it. At that time it would be hard to say. Of course, each foreign fortress would also release different battle missions according to the situation of the battle. These missions also had quite rich rewards, such as destroying the teleportation formation, intercepting and killing the enemy's important figures, rescuing hostages in the enemy's hands, and so on. Chapter 4997. Every outer domain fortress of the Dragon God clan's big world was quite complicated, and there were almost no 2 fortresses with similar situations. Therefore, every time Kong Shinmu arrived at an outer domain fortress, he must first use the shortest amount of time to understand the situation of that outer domain fortress, and then make a targeted plan to earn achievement points. This was Kong Shinmu's plan. Of course, this was only a rough plan. The specific plan had to wait for Emperor Shi's mystical dragon to list the outer domain fortresses that had Dubhe Stone liquid for him in 3 days. Since this was the case, the matter was settled. As for what Emperor Shi said, as long as Kong Shinmu could get 91 portions of Dubhe Stone liquid within a year, he would be given an extra reward. He didn't take it too seriously. After all, it was hard to say whether he could really complete this task. It should be known that a plan was just a plan. Now, just the plan itself felt very difficult, not to mention the actual implementation. If it went well, Kong Shinmu wanted to get 140 portions of Dubhe Stone liquid to create an invisible weapon with 10 kinds of battle patterns. As for more than that, it was almost impossible to accomplish, unless Jiang Shenwu suddenly hit the jackpot and encountered a grievously injured supreme expert of the enemy's level. Only then would there be a slight possibility of him killing the other party. Moreover, he would need to encounter such a jackpot several times in a row. In any case, the matter was settled. Emperor Shi and Huang Shanka made an agreement with Kong Shinmu within a year. After a year, based on how much Dubhe Stone liquid Kong Shinmu got, he would create a corresponding invisible weapon for Kong Shinmu. In order to be able to create an invisible weapon, Huang Shanka was completely willing to wait for a year. This was nothing to him. After the agreement, it was time for Kong Shinmu to leave. Sister Emperor Shi, I'll walk with your little disciple. When Kong Shinmu was about to leave, unexpectedly, the young woman in purple smiled slyly and followed him. What are you planning? Emperor Shi's mystical dragon asked expressionlessly. Nothing, I'm just a little curious and want to ask some questions. Zai mystical dragon giggled. She raised her hand, and a stream of purple energy wrapped around Kong Shinmu and brought him out of the hall. Kong Shinmu was brought out with a dumbfounded expression. Sensing the alluring fragrance coming from the purple aura, Kong Shinmu felt relaxed and happy. However, this purple love mystical dragon was a supreme powerhouse like Emperor Shi's mystical dragon. Why was she looking for him alone? Kong Shinmu, do you have a wife now? Purple love divine dragon pulled Kong Shinmu out of the hall and asked bluntly. Wife? No. Hearing the other party's direct question, Kong Shinmu was stunned, and he couldn't even speak clearly. That's good. How about I introduce one to you? Zai mystical dragon's eyes lit up. Hearing her say this, Kong Shinmu was speechless. Sister? Even an uncle like Huang Shanka called her Senior Zai. It could be seen that this purple love mystical dragon wasn't young. Of course, just by looking at her figure and appearance, she was definitely a great beauty. But, introducing a wife to him? Kong Shinmu felt that he didn't need it. Senior, let's forget about it. Kong Shinmu felt his body stiffen. This purple love mystical dragon was a little too enthusiastic. He wondered who she wanted to introduce to him as a wife. It's nothing. You don't have to be so polite. It's settled. I'll ask her to come and find you tomorrow. Seeing Kong Shinmu like this, Zai mystical dragon chuckled and patted Kong Shinmu's shoulder. After saying that, she turned and left. Kong Shinmu was left alone outside the hall. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What was this? Didn't he just say forget about it? What do you mean you don't have to be polite? That's it? Kong Shinmu completely didn't expect that as an unparalleled divine dragon, Zai mystical dragon, she would be so shameless. But after she said that, she left. Kong Shinmu didn't even have the chance to refuse again. He could only see her turn into a purple light and disappear into the distance. She didn't give Kong Shinmu a chance to refuse. Kong Shinmu felt a little tired. But he was puzzled and curious. Who would Zai mystical dragon introduce to him? No, why am I curious? Kong Shinmu quickly shook his head. No matter who Zai mystical dragon introduced to him tomorrow, he didn't plan to accept it. Just the thought of it was too scary. Even if the other party was really a girl as beautiful as a fairy, Kong Shinmu didn't plan to accept it. After all, there were already many beautiful girls around Kong Shinmu. Just Xueqi of the Demon God clan and Gu Xinyue of the Gu family were enough to give Kong Shinmu a headache. Not to mention there were also Xiaobai, Ran Ran, and the others. He couldn't give them up. If there was another one, Kong Shinmu would really have a headache. But now, it seemed that Kong Shinmu couldn't stop Zai mystical dragon. What was this? Forget it. I'll go meet Yu Tianchong and the others first. Kong Shinmu shook his head. He could only wait until tomorrow to clarify this matter. He turned around and left the fortress command. 2 hours later, in a restaurant in Fortress Iron Phoenix, he met up with Yu Tianshang and the others again. When he saw Yu Tianchong and the other 2 girls again, he found that they were in a good mood. But it was reasonable. After all, they had killed a big shot like Deputy General Xueqi. How many achievement points they could get was secondary. The key was that they had made a contribution. Deputy General Xueqi was a relatively cunning guy. He had harmed many young female practitioners of the Dragon God clan. This time, he was finally killed by them. Of course, they were very happy. In fact, this incident had also earned them a lot of reputation in the Guardian Legion of Fortress Iron Phoenix. Not everyone could hunt down a deputy general. Even some experts at the level of Super Dragon God might not be able to kill Deputy General Xueqi. This time, the key to the success of Kong Shinmu and the others was the cultivation of Kong Shinmu and Yu Tianchong, which made Deputy General Xueqi not completely alert. If the experts at the level of Super Dragon God had taken action, it would have been impossible for Deputy General Xueqi to fall into the trap. That was why Deputy General Xueqi, who was at level 3 of the Supreme God Realm, was so difficult to kill. But this time, Yu Tianchong and the others did it. This gave each of them 30,000 to 40,000 gold dragon coins worth of Iron Phoenix Fortress achievement points. As for Kong Shinmu, he got 100,000 gold dragon coins worth of achievement points, which could be exchanged for a lot of cultivation resources. And these cultivation resources were what Kong Shinmu needed. Chapter 4998. After meeting Yu Tianchong and the others in the fortress restaurant, the 4 of them had a good celebration. Then Kong Shinmu told them about his next plan. What? You're going to train in the Outland fortresses for the next year? Or can you only go alone? Yu Tianchong was a little surprised, because she had only been operating in the fortress of Iron Phoenix so far. It was not that she did not want to go to the other Outland fortresses, but the situation in each Outland fortress was different. If she went there rashly, it would be much more dangerous when she was not familiar with the situation. If she wanted to understand the situation in the other Outland fortresses, she would have to spend more time and energy. If she had the time and energy, it would be better to stay in the fortress of Iron Phoenix and complete some relatively simple tasks. They had made such a plan to kill Deputy General Xueqi this time because they were all planning to break through. Otherwise, they would rarely take such risks. I want to forge a super dragon weapon. I have no choice. It's a task given to me by Master Emperor Shi. Kong Xinmu said with a smile. Gu Yusheng was silent at the side, only eating. Feng Ligay was very interested in Kong Xinmu's next action. Why don't I go with you? I don't need you to share your achievement points with me. How about I follow you to do odd jobs and see the world? If you go to the other outland fortresses to train, your opponents will definitely be those supreme gods, right? It's good for me to go with you. Don't join in the fun. Yu Tianchong rolled her eyes. If I let you go with me, I'm afraid you'll get tired of it in a few days. How is that possible? Feng Ligay was angry and pouted. She looked a little different from her usual image of a big sister. She looked a little cute. After a small gathering, everyone went their separate ways. Next, Kong Xinmu lived in a barracks that Emperor Shi had arranged for him. However, Kong Xinmu did not rest. Instead, he began to try to break through. Now that he had defeated 2 supreme gods at the 3rd level, the grade of the inherited blood essence of Dragon Emperor's 7th level could not keep up. Therefore, it was time for him to make another breakthrough. In terms of cultivation level, he was already at the 8th level of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm, so he could go up another level. Of course, regardless of whether it was the increase in Cultivation Realm or the increase in the grade of the Divine Dragon's blood essence, it was not very significant to Kong Xinmu's current peak combat strength. After all, he was mainly relying on the power of the Starry Sky legacy to fight against a supreme god-level opponent. Before his Divine Dragon Inheritance blood essence reached the Transcendent God level, even if he reached the peak of the Dragon Emperor, his combat power would not break through too much. Of course, if he could break through and reach the peak of the Dragon Emperor, the improvement would be great. It was just that it would not play a decisive role in a battle between transcendent gods. If he wanted to defeat a Transcendent God level 1 or level 2, he could rely on the inheritance of the dragon gods to defeat his opponent. Once he encountered an enemy of Transcendent God level 3, he would still have to rely on the power of the galaxy inheritance. As for opponents of Transcendent God level 4, even if Kong Xinmu broke through to the peak of the Dragon Emperor, he would not dare to casually provoke them. That was an existence much stronger than a Transcendent God level 3. In fact, one person could even deal with several Transcendent God level 3 alone. They were not on the same level, so there was no need for Kong Xinmu to think too much about it. In short, he had to reach the peak of the Dragon Emperor first. As for when he would break through to the grade of the Super Divine Dragon's Inheritance blood essence, that was not certain. Kong Xinmu's current power of the Starry Sky legacy was his strongest technique, followed by the Divine Dragon's Inheritance, then the Demon God Race's Inheritance, and the Heaven-deficient Demonic Dragon of Ice and Fire. These 2 inheritances were still relatively less used at the moment, mainly because he did not have many opportunities to use them. Suddenly, Kong Xinmu thought of the Heaven-deficient Demonic Dragon of Ice and Fire's time-devouring method. As long as it devoured opponents stronger than it, the time it obtained would accelerate faster. Under such circumstances, could it devour the time of those Transcendent God level 3 experts? Because he was only at the level of the Dragon Emperor, and Transcendent gods were much stronger than him. This level was completely different. Therefore, perhaps the Heaven-deficient Demonic Dragon of Ice and Fire's time-devouring ability could give him more time to cultivate. Very soon, Kong Xinmu obtained the answer from the Black Dragon's consciousness. According to the experience of the Black Dragon's consciousness, if Kong Xinmu used the Heaven-deficient Demonic Dragon of Ice and Fire's ability on an opponent at the Transcendent God level 3 after he reached the peak of the Dragon Emperor, he would be able to accelerate time by about 1,000 times. This acceleration meant that 2 hours would become 1,000 hours, which was nearly a year. Of course, in battle, it would be difficult for Kong Xinmu to control his opponent for 2 hours. After all, his opponent was at the Transcendent God level 3. However, it was still possible to use it to buy himself a few months of cultivation time and operate it properly. This gave Kong Xinmu quite a lot of inspiration. This opponent could cultivate for a few months. One opponent every 4 days. In total, he would have close to 100 opponents in a year. Didn't this mean that Kong Xinmu could cultivate for a few more decades? No matter what, Kong Xinmu planned to prepare for this. Of course, before that, he had to increase his cultivation first. Then, in the army camp, Kong Shinmu directly absorbed the power of the divine dragon marrow he had devoured before and integrated it into his body, turning it into the purest dragon mark energy. It spread to his limbs and bones, allowing his physical body to move one step closer to the divine dragon tribe. This was an increase in strength and a transformation of life. It was said that when a dragon warrior broke through to the end, they would become a true divine dragon. They would have almost eternal life and terrifying strength. That was an existence that surpassed the supreme divine dragons. They were called ancestral dragons. Kong Shinmu had heard of the term ancestral dragons a long time ago. Unfortunately, as he kept improving, he realized that the ancestral dragons had long been extinct in the current dragon god world. It was almost impossible for the current supreme divine dragons to reach the level of the ancestral dragons. Because that was a true divine dragon. Its original form was a divine dragon, not a human. The complete transformation of life form was the most difficult thing in the world. For a dragon warrior, it was the first end of cultivation, but it was the end that no one could reach at this stage. These things were still very far away from the current Kong Shinmu. However, after he absorbed the energy of the divine dragon marrow, he finally began to move towards the level of the peak dragon emperor. Now that Kong Shinmu had broken through the level of the inherited blood essence, there was no need for him to return to the dragon ceiling abyss. With the demon god ancestor's consciousness restricting the black dragon's consciousness, Kong Shinmu did not feel any danger. Although he sometimes felt that the demon god ancestor's consciousness seemed to be unable to suppress the black dragon's consciousness, at least for now, the black dragon's consciousness did not seem to have any special actions. This made Kong Shinmu relax. At least for now, it seemed that the black dragon's consciousness did not mean him any harm. Chapter 4999. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth gathered at this moment. Like a whirlwind, it enveloped Kong Shinmu's surroundings. This caused the surroundings of his tent to be filled with rich dragon mark energy. It formed a whirlwind that was swallowed by him. With the formation of all these strange phenomena, Kong Shinmu's divine dragon inheritance blood essence finally achieved a breakthrough. A divine dragon's roar erupted from the tent. Then, Kong Shinmu's black dragon body flew up into the sky. Under the shroud of dragon mark energy, his aura continued to rise. Dragon Emperor Level 8. The divine dragon inheritance blood essence had an explosive breakthrough at this moment, and it did not stop there. As Kong Shinmu continued to absorb the power of the divine dragon marrow that he had swallowed before, he integrated the endless dragon mark energy into his body. This divine dragon marrow was an earth-level divine dragon marrow, which was the third level of divine dragon marrow. Originally, it could have been used for the super mystical dragon to raise the grade of the mystical dragon legacy blood essence. However, after Jiang Shenwu devoured it, he stored its power. Now that he absorbed it into his body, the explosive power caused his legacy blood essence to boil. In the Guardian Legion's camp of Fort Iron Phoenix, many dragon warriors watched this scene and could not help but be shocked. Because they had never seen someone who dared to raise the level of divine dragon inheritance blood essence twice in a row. Generally speaking, one needed to rest for a period of time to raise a level, but Kong Shinmu did not stop and directly broke through again. Since Emperor Shi and the divine dragon did not appear to stop him, it meant that Kong Shinmu must have his own confidence. Such a strong breakthrough made the dragon warriors in the Legion feel fascinated. Before they could observe for too long, the dragon mark energy in Kong Shinmu's body once again reached its peak state. Terrifying power poured out in all directions at this moment. The endless dragon mark energy condensed his divine dragon inheritance blood essence to an extremely terrifying level. From the Dragon Emperor Level 8, he directly broke through to the Dragon Emperor Level 9. Such a rapid breakthrough, but Kong Shinmu did not feel the slightest discomfort. He could feel that his power belonging to the Dragon God clan was rising and exploding until he reached the peak of the Dragon Emperor level. Peak Dragon Emperor. This level had finally been reached. For Kong Shinmu, this was not a milestone. After all, his strength had reached the level of Super Shenron long before this. But no matter what, this meant that his strength in the inheritance of the Dragon Gods had reached a pretty good level. Dragon Emperor, at his peak, could already be considered a powerhouse. In the entire Dragon God clan, he could be regarded as a mainstay. He was not someone who could be easily taken advantage of. In particular, Kong Shinmu, who was at the pinnacle of the Dragon Emperor, could easily defeat a first-stage Supreme God without using the power of the Galaxy Legacy. This made Kong Shinmu's combat power increase by leaps and bounds. As for second-stage Supreme God opponents, it would be difficult for Kong Shinmu to deal with them without using the power of the Galaxy Legacy. However, Kong Shinmu's next plan was to increase his cultivation level and reach the peak of the reincarnation realm. Only when his cultivation level and inherited blood essence reached the peak would he be able to break through to the Super God level. Although Kong Shinmu did not plan to break through to the Super God level, it was time for his cultivation level to increase. After all, his previous strength had been consolidated for a long time and was now completely under his control. After Kong Shinmu broke through the inherited blood essence twice and reached the pinnacle of the Dragon Emperor level, Kong Shinmu did not stop to rest. As he absorbed the spirit energy of heaven and earth and integrated it into his body, the aura of his black dragon body suddenly changed again. Then, a reincarnation cloud appeared in the sky, and a reincarnation behemoth was constantly roaring and condensing in the cloud. He first increased the inherited blood essence twice and then broke through to the next cultivation level. Such a decisive action shocked the surrounding group of people. It was a big taboo for many people to make continuous breakthroughs. This meant that it would be rather difficult to consolidate one's strength in the future. It was better to increase it bit by bit. However, since Kong Shinmu had done this, he naturally had his own confidence. This was why the surrounding people were surprised. What kind of talent did Kong Shinmu have to have broken through 3 times in a row without having to worry about the consolidation of his strength? This was also related to the devouring power. Kong Shinmu had the devouring power, so he was naturally much stronger than ordinary people in terms of the consolidation of his strength. He only needed to devour the strength of others to consolidate the increase in strength brought about by his breakthrough. This was not a difficult task at all. This was why Kong Shinmu's cultivation level and strength had been consolidated so quickly. Otherwise, how could the consolidation of his strength keep up with the rapid improvement of his cultivation level and inherited blood essence? With the appearance of the reincarnation beast, Kong Shinmu's black dragon body had already rushed above the clouds. Kong Shinmu did not need to use any special methods to deal with such a reincarnation beast. He could directly kill it with his physical body. Only the second reincarnation beast would be slightly troublesome. However, it was not too much trouble for Kong Shinmu. He could kill it with just a little bit of strength. After all, Kong Shinmu was now in existence that could kill Supreme God-level opponents. The strength of the second reincarnation beast was at most similar to that of a first-stage Supreme God. Just as Kong Shinmu was continuously increasing his cultivation level and making breakthroughs, in the surrounding crowd, there was a beautiful figure quietly watching him, or rather, feeling him. This beautiful figure was dressed in white, and she looked quiet and gentle. However, she was wearing a white veil, so no one could see her appearance clearly. Beside her was a young woman in a purple robe. It was the Supreme Divine Dragon, Zai Divine Dragon. At this moment, the attractive purple Love Divine Dragon smiled and said, "Emoya, don't you think he is not bad? In the next year, he will be the target of your protection." The lady in white with a veil, who was called Emoya, acknowledged softly and nodded her head. She did not look at Kong Shinmu, who was in the midst of a breakthrough in the sky. This was because she did not rely on her eyes to sense her surroundings. Instead, she relied on her perception of strength. In other words, Emoya seemed to be a blind lady. The purple Love Divine Dragon had asked Emoya to protect Kong Shinmu. It was obvious that Emoya's strength was unfathomable. However, no matter which dragon martial artist came here, they would not be able to see Emoya's strength. Emoya did not even have the strength of the dragon gods. Chapter 5000. Kong Shinmu did not know that these 2 women were secretly observing him. After all, the purple Love Divine Dragon was a supreme being. With her around, it was very easy for her to secretly observe Kong Shinmu. There was no way that Kong Shinmu would be able to discover her. Kong Shinmu's 3 consecutive breakthroughs did not take long. It was not difficult for Kong Shinmu to defeat 2 reincarnation beasts consecutively. After the 9-layer gem of the virtual ghost book was activated, Kong Shinmu used the 9-layer extreme Dao Hui dragon explosion to blast the second reincarnation beast into pieces. This second reincarnation beast directly turned into the purest reincarnation power and started to condense Kong Shinmu's power. At this point, Kong Shinmu's aura finally climbed to the peak of the reincarnation realm. His cultivation had truly reached the peak. 4 ordinary dragon martial artists, It was much more difficult to raise the grade of the divine dragon's inherited essence blood than to break through to the next realm. However, this was because ordinary dragon martial artists' combat power was relatively low. Basically, they did not expect to defeat a second reincarnation beast. If they wanted to defeat 2 reincarnation beasts every time they broke through to the next realm, it would be much more difficult. Now, the reason why Xiao Bai ran, and the rest did not improve very quickly was because when they broke through to the next realm, they would all try to defeat a second reincarnation beast. After all, this could increase the upper limit of their strength. This way, when they reached the peak of the Dragon Emperor and the reincarnation realm, their combat power would be many times stronger than other dragon martial artists who had reached the peak of the reincarnation realm. This was not a small matter. Even if they reached the supreme god level, it would still affect them in the future. Therefore, every single one of them wanted to defeat the 2 reincarnation beasts and condense 1 more reincarnation power. Therefore, they needed to do their best in the same realm and raise their battle prowess to the highest level before continuing to break through. Under such circumstances, they felt that breaking through to the next realm was much more difficult than improving with the divine dragon's inherited essence blood. This was because everyone's goals were different. In reality, supreme experts like the Purple Love Divine Dragon and Emperor Shi Divine Dragon had broken through after defeating 2 reincarnation beasts when they were in the Rebirth Tribulation realm. Kong Shin-Mu landed on the ground and released his dragon god form. He felt that he had truly reached the peak of the reincarnation tribulation realm, as well as the peak of the Dragon Emperor. However, there was still some power in his body that had not been consolidated. He felt that he had another goal. He would first consolidate these powers during the training, then consider whether to break through to the Super Shenron. If he stayed at the peak of Dragon Emperor, Kong Shin-Mu wanted to try and see if he could enter an intermediate historical remnant. If he could enter an intermediate historical remnant, it would be a great opportunity for Kong Shin-Mu. However, considering that his galaxy inheritance power had already reached Transcendent God Stage 2, it was not certain if he could enter the intermediate ruins. No matter what, Kong Shin-Mu's power had yet to be consolidated. He did not need to consider the issue of breaking through to Super Shenron for now. Next, Kong Shin-Mu began to rest. As he rested, he consolidated the increase in power brought about by his breakthrough. On the 3rd day, before Kong Shin-Mu had woken up, he sensed someone outside his tent. This person was light and did not seem to have any power. However, it made Kong Shin-Mu feel a little dangerous. When he opened the tent, Kong Shin-Mu realized that it was a young girl wearing a white veil. She should be a young girl. From her aura, he could feel that she was young and did not have the cultivation of the dragon gods. However, Kong Shin-Mu felt that she had a special aura. This aura gave him a sense of danger but also a sense of familiarity. This made Kong Shin-Mu feel a little strange. "Miss, are you looking for me?" Kong Shin-Mu asked when he saw her. "Yes." The young girl wearing a white veil replied softly. She did not even look at him. Then, she took out a jade scroll from her bulging bosom and handed it to Kong Shin-Mu. She said softly, "Emperor, she asked me to give this to you." Kong Shin-Mu took the jade scroll and looked at it with his mind. He found that this jade scroll recorded the storage situation of the Dubhe stone liquid of the major foreign strongholds. It included how many portions of Dubhe stone liquid were stored in which strongholds, and how many achievement points were needed to exchange for it. Of course, it was impossible to collect the battle situation of each foreign stronghold in such a short period of time. This kind of information could only wait for Kong Shin-Mu to go to the foreign strongholds himself before he could investigate it himself. "Thank you, Mississippi." Kong Shin-Mu nodded to the young girl wearing a white veil. He thought that the young girl was here to give him something, but after a while, he realized that the young girl wearing a white veil had no intention of leaving. He could not help but feel a little strange. "That's right, I'm going to leave soon. I've delivered the thing. Thank you. You can go back first." Kong Shin-Mu put away the jade scroll and said to the young girl after thinking for a while. He planned to go to the other foreign strongholds. In his opinion, this was naturally his action alone. So the young girl did not leave now. Was there something else she wanted to find him for? No matter what, Kong Shin-Mu had to let her leave first. But what surprised Kong Shin-Mu was that the young girl wearing a white veil shook her head gently and said softly, "I'll just follow you. Wherever you go, I'll go." These words immediately made Kong Shin-Mu feel as if he had been struck by lightning. What was wrong with this young girl? From the information jade scroll that she brought to Kong Shin-Mu, it was definitely related to Emperor Shi and the Divine Dragon. Their relationship seemed to be quite good. However, this young girl said that she wanted to follow Kong Shinmu. Why? Kong Shinmu suddenly thought of something. 3 days ago, Divine Dragon Zai seemed to have said to him that he would introduce a wife to him? Could this young girl in front of him be? Kong Shinmu's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly said, "Miss, you don't have to follow me. You were sent by Senior Divine Dragon Zai, right? I don't lack a wife. Really, you can go back and tell Senior Divine Dragon Zai." As soon as he said this, Kong Shinmu felt that the expression of the young girl wearing a white veil in front of him seemed to have changed. Of course, this was just a feeling. After all, the white veil contained some kind of power that prevented Kong Shinmu's various abilities from passing through the white veil and seeing her expression clearly. But when she heard Kong Shinmu's words, it seemed that this young girl was a little embarrassed and angry. Kong Shinmu felt that the atmosphere around him had changed, so he made this judgment. Chapter 5001. No matter what Zai says, I will go wherever you go for the next year. The white-veiled girl didn't seem to like talking, and this sentence was already considered to be one of the longer sentences she had spoken. This made Kong Shinmu somewhat stiff. What's wrong with this girl? I already said that I don't lack a wife. Well, no matter what, this white-veiled girl was somewhat close to Kong Shinmu. And Kong Shinmu felt that no matter what she said or did, her eyes never moved. I'm afraid she's a blind girl. Kong Shinmu had a headache. Why did Zai Divine Dragon send a blind girl to follow him? Wasn't this making it more difficult for him to obtain merit points in exchange for Dubhe Stone Liquid? Don't worry. The white-veiled girl suddenly said softly, I will only follow you to the stronghold and take care of your daily life. I will also be responsible for contacting the stronghold's garrison. When you are outside the stronghold, you don't need to care about me. Hearing this, Kong Shinmu sighed in relief. So she was only going to take care of his daily life and help him contact the stronghold's garrison. It seemed that arranging a girl like this wasn't a bad idea. His daily life wasn't much, but contacting the stronghold's garrison was better done by a specialized person. Otherwise, it would take a long time for Kong Shinmu to communicate with the stronghold's garrison, and it would greatly slow down the speed at which he obtained merit points. Then thank you very much, miss. Kong Shinmu finally reluctantly accepted this girl. But Zai Divine Dragon said that she was going to send him a wife or something. Could this girl in front of him really be Zai Divine Dragon's wife? It wasn't that Kong Shinmu didn't like the girl in front of him. On the contrary, although the girl in front of him seemed to be a blind girl, her figure was extremely alluring and her voice was very gentle. He could imagine that her appearance was definitely not bad. Kong Shinmu was at a loss. Was he really going to spend a year with this girl? This girl definitely didn't have any feelings for Kong Shinmu now, but what if she really did develop feelings for Kong Shinmu a year later? It was not that Kong Shinmu was too narcissistic, but he had no choice but to consider this problem. It was a really troublesome problem. However, the white-veiled girl in front of him did not seem to notice Kong Shinmu's distress. She said softly to herself, My name is Moya. You can ask me anything during the next year. Yes. Moya. Kong Shinmu nodded. I'm thinking of heading to the Torrent Fort. There are a total of 6 portions of Dubhe Stone Liquid stored in this outer region stronghold, which is my first target. The plan is to exchange for all 6 portions of Dubhe Stone Liquid within 20 days. Yes. Moya didn't say anything. She just nodded gently. Then let's go? Kong Shinmu asked tentatively. Yes. Moya gently nodded again. Kong Shinmu found this girl to be very gentle and obedient, so he didn't pay much attention to her. After all, she was just following him around to make things more convenient for him. As long as she was obedient, there shouldn't be any effect on his actions. Thus, Kong Shinmu turned around and walked toward the space-time array of the Iron Phoenix Fort. He walked slowly because he wanted to take care of Moya. After all, he didn't feel the slightest bit of cultivation from her body. She looked very weak. But he soon discovered that even if he walked a little faster, Moya could still keep up with him. Thus, he didn't pay much attention to her. He used the power of the Starry Sky inheritance and condensed 2 Starry Sky runes, enveloping both him and Moya. With the support of these 2 Starry Sky runes, their speed was greatly increased. This was because these two starry sky runes allowed them to leave the ground and float in the air, allowing them to advance at an extremely fast speed. Kong Shinmu led Moya forward. He paid special attention to Moya and found that the girl was enveloped by the starry sky runes. She seemed to be curious about this power, and her flying speed was indeed much faster. She seems to be very familiar with this speed. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. With this starry sky rune, Moya's flying speed was almost 20 to 30 times faster than walking. However, she didn't feel the slightest discomfort at this speed. Instead, she seemed to be very familiar with this speed. This made Kong Shinmu wonder if Moya had some other abilities. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known Emperor Shi and Zai, two powerful supreme-level divine dragons. Moreover, Moya was very casual with how she addressed the two supreme-level divine dragons. She called them by their names. This made Kong Shinmu even more suspicious of her identity. Could it be that Moya is also a supreme-level divine dragon and is hiding her strength? Kong Shinmu was shocked by his own guess. However, he quickly shook his head. This was too impossible. A supreme-level divine dragon was very precious to the current divine dragon clan. How could they have sent such a powerful divine dragon to protect him for a year? Moreover, if Moya was a supreme divine dragon, how could no one have heard of her? Along the way, they had encountered many dragon warriors who were training and many legions of dragon warriors. No matter what kind of dragon warrior they were, they didn't seem to pay any special attention to Moya. Kong Shinmu even deliberately eavesdropped on the conversations of the people around them and found that they were even discussing Moya's alluring figure. This confirmed that Moya was definitely not a supreme divine dragon. How could anyone dare to blaspheme a supreme divine dragon? It was fine if Kong Shinmu didn't know her, but most of the dragon warriors in Iron Phoenix Fortress had been here for a long time. They should have heard of every supreme-level divine dragon. Since that was the case, Kong Shinmu didn't make any more guesses. Soon, he and Moya arrived at the space-time array of Iron Phoenix Fortress. Through the space-time array, the two directly chose Torrent Fortress as their first destination. Torrent Fortress was Kong Shinmu's starting point. It was also a fortress that stored more Dubhe stone liquid. The situation at Torrent Fortress is very intense. It seems that the Talisman Water Tribe is mainly attacking the outer region fortresses. Before teleporting, Moya mentioned something to Kong Shinmu. When we arrive at Torrent Fortress, I can help you contact the fortress army and ask them to find you some missions of sufficient difficulty. As for the situation outside, you will have to find out on your own. Thank you very much, Moya. Kong Shinmu nodded. He was very grateful to the girl. Chapter 5002. After deciding to go to the Torrent Fortress, Kong Shinmu and Moya stepped onto the space-time array of the Iron Phoenix Fortress. After a burst of white light, the scene in front of Kong Shinmu suddenly changed. He opened his eyes and found that he had actually come to a light blue world. The Torrent Fortress was actually a fortress in the middle of the sea. Fortunately, for the dragon martial artists, the sea was also a suitable place for survival. A fortress built in the sea could also defend against the fierce attacks from the Talisman Water Tribe. Kong Shinmu and Moya appeared together in this sea. Kong Shinmu was originally a little worried about whether Moya could survive in this sea, but he soon found that he was worrying too much. There was a pendant hanging on her delicate and white neck. That pendant directly condensed a layer of light white film, covering her whole body. Within that layer of light white film, Moya had no problem surviving in this sea. I'll go and contact the guards. You go and walk around by yourself and familiarize yourself with the terrain. The main thing is to find out some important battle information. After Moya finished speaking to Kong Shinmu, she swam in the direction of a fortress in the water with some familiarity. It seemed that Moya was quite familiar with the terrain of the Torrent Fortress. Seeing that she had left, Kong Shinmu heaved a sigh of relief. It really didn't feel good to have someone watching from the side. But no matter what, this Moya following Kong Shinmu was of great help to Kong Shinmu. Then let's go and find out some information first. Kong Shinmu thought in his heart and began to swim around the fortress in the water. The Torrent Fortress was a spherical fortress located in the center of the whole sea. There were a total of 8 doors in 8 directions, and these 8 doors were naturally closed. The space-time array that could lead to the Dragon God's world was located inside the spherical fortress. The place where Kong Shinmu and Moya appeared was also inside the spherical Torrent Fortress. Many of the buildings in the stronghold were made of blue crystals. This was because they were made from local materials. In the small world outside the torrent stronghold, this kind of blue crystal had existed in the ocean for thousands of years and could withstand the corrosion of the ocean currents. As a result, the buildings in the torrent fortress were all light blue in color. They looked like sparkling stars, which was quite beautiful. Kong Shinmu left the room where the space-time array was located and quickly arrived at the street outside. Going to and fro the entire torrent fort, Kong Shinmu saw many dragon martialists coming and going. Many of them even had wounds on their bodies. Judging from this scene, the battle outside the torrent fortress was unusually intense. But as for the specific situation, Kong Shinmu had to carefully investigate and inquire about it. The Dragon God clan was now being attacked by 4 major clans at the same time. Among them were the Fu Shui clan, the Devil Leader clan, the Demon God clan, and the Great Bat clan. Of course, the Demon God clan was a very large clan. The Demon God clan that attacked the Dragon God clan this time was only a few branches of the Demon God clan. But even if it was only a few branches, their overall strength was already comparable to the Fu Shui clan, the Devil Leader clan, and the Great Bat clan. Now the overall situation of the battle had become quite intense. As mentioned before, there were already many supreme experts from the 4 clans who had invaded the Dragon God's macro world. It was not that they had breached any stronghold, but that some supreme experts had some special means to find the specific location of the Dragon God's macro world through the space cracks of these foreign strongholds. Now, many of the supreme masters of the Dragon Gods were not guarding the outer domain fortresses. Instead, they were guarding some important places in the Dragon God's world. For example, there were 2 supreme holy places of the Dragon God's clan that were now sealed spaces. Because there were many supreme experts of the 4 clans attacking, the supreme experts of the Dragon God's clan sealed the 2 holy places together. There was also a forbidden area, which was an important location of the Dragon God's clan. It was the place where the supreme divine dragons advanced to the next level. That place was now also caught in a supreme level dispute. However, no matter where the dispute was, it was sealed by the supreme divine dragons to ensure that it would not spread to other places of the Dragon God's world. In addition, there were some supreme experts of the 4 clans who passed through the space-time array of the fortress with their own strength. This kind of supreme powerhouse directly broke through the sky of the Dragon God's great world. Then, what they encountered was the defensive barrier jointly set up by many supreme divine dragons. Now, there were not many foreign cultivators who could break through the defense barrier, but there were some who had broken into the Dragon God's macro world by special means. One of them had been killed, and there were still 2 supreme-level foreign cultivators who were now hidden, bringing endless threats to the Dragon God's macro world. Right now, there were many people searching for the 2 hidden supreme experts. It could be said that the foreign fortresses were the first line of defense. Those who could break through the first line of defense at this stage were only the supreme top experts. They all relied on some special means to break through the defense of the foreign fortresses and go to the inside of the Dragon God's world, or even some holy places. However, if the foreign fortresses were broken through, then all the foreign clans could go to the Dragon God's world, and the situation would become extremely dangerous. If it was just the supreme top experts, it would be better. After all, they could specifically deal with them. Once ordinary foreign practitioners could also break into the Dragon God's world, the situation would not be good, because it would make the Dragon God's world very chaotic. This was the overall situation of the war that Kong Shinmu had inquired about. As for the war situation in the Torrent Fortress, it was also quite complicated. First of all, the Torrent Fortress was divided into 8 gates, and each gate faced the surrounding sea. Because there was no ground cover, the direction of the attack on the Torrent Fortress was more than twice that of other ordinary fortresses. So, more dragon warriors were needed to guard it. Now, some battles were still breaking out outside the Torrent Fortress. Some large-scale battles basically involved tens of thousands of people. Mainly the Dragon Warrior Corps stationed in the Torrent Fortress. Basically all of them participated in the battle, trying to annihilate more attacking troops of the Fu Shui clan. There were also many dragon warriors who came to the Torrent Fortress to shed their blood to gain experience. These dragon warriors were also a great help to the Torrent Fortress against the enemy. Now, at every moment, there were more than 10,000 dragon warriors training in the Floodstream stronghold, fighting with the Talisman Aqua race. This way they could increase their strength to the greatest extent and gain more combat experience. Although it was dangerous, once they defeated the enemy, the harvest was extremely rich. On the one hand, it was the spoils of war from the enemy, And on the other hand, it could be exchanged for a considerable number of achievement points every time they killed the enemy. Even now, just relying on the torrent stronghold was no longer able to provide so many achievement points for the dragon warriors to kill the talisman water tribe cultivators. The dragon warriors all wanted to exchange their achievement points for cultivation resources. But where could the torrent stronghold get so many cultivation resources? As a last resort, they had already asked for help from the dragon god's world. Without enough cultivation resources, it was impossible to have so many dragon warriors emerge. Chapter 5003. The dragon martialists who came to the Torrent Fortress to train were basically here for cultivation resources. If the Torrent Fortress could no longer provide cultivation resources, they would naturally head to other fortresses. For most dragon martialists, they paid more attention to their own improvement and development. As for whether the Torrent Fortress would be breached or not, it was not that they were indifferent, but it was useless for them to care. This was not something that the dragon martialists could control. Therefore, the Torrent Fortress could only request for more cultivation resources from the rear. It could be said that the Torrent Fortress was currently in the most urgent situation among the outland fortresses. Of course, it was only one of the most urgent. As Kong Shinmu walked on the streets, he saw many dragon martialists hurrying to and fro. There were also many people from the dragon martialist corps coming and going, constantly entering and leaving the fortress. He had heard a lot of information. Although it was not comprehensive enough, it should be enough for him to act in the Torrent Fortress. Very soon, he received a message from Mo Ya. He did not know how Mo Ya's gentle voice was transmitted directly into his mind. "I've finished the handover with the army. Let's meet at the north gate of the fortress." The Torrent Fortress had a total of 8 gates. Among them, there were 2 gates at the top and 2 at the top. It was the largest main gate. There were also gates in the north, south, east, and west. Now, Mo Ya told Kong Shinmu to go near the north gate. Therefore, Jiang Shenwu didn't stop and headed straight for the northern gate of the Torrent Fortress. He was very fast, but he didn't expect to see Mo Ya's figure in the distance when he arrived at the northern gate of the fort. "She's that fast." Kong Shinmu was a little surprised. However, he did not know if she had come early or something, so Kong Shinmu did not think too much about it. He went up to Mo Ya's beautiful body, which was wearing a white veil. "I'm here, Mo Ya. Is there any training that suits me here?" Kong Shinmu asked directly. Now, earning achievement points to exchange for Heaven's Core Stone Liquid was his #1 priority. So, no matter what, training missions were of the highest priority. "There are 2. It depends on which one you choose." Mo Ya's gentle voice could be heard. The first was to kill a level 3 Supreme God Deputy General. Right now, this Deputy General was leading the army to fight against the Torrent Stronghold's army. If you can kill this Deputy General, you can directly exchange for a portion of Dubhe Stone Liquid. There's also a training mission, which is to guard an important region. That region produces many precious cultivation resources, and it's always been heavily guarded. Unfortunately, the Talisman Water Race has been crazily attacking that region recently. When defending that area, the more Seal Water Clan Xueqi you kill, the more achievement points you will receive. I've made some calculations for you. Based on the combat strength you've displayed so far, you're quite bewildering. No matter which mission it is, the chances of success are very high. Especially the second defense mission, if you kill a lot of them, you can exchange your achievement points for a portion of Heaven's Core Stone Liquid every day. Kong Shinmu was a little surprised by Mo Ya's words. From the looks of it, it wasn't too difficult to earn Heaven's Core Stone Liquid. Of course, this was from Kong Shinmu's point of view. Moreover, it was quite difficult to kill a level 3 Supreme God Deputy General. Kong Shinmu might have the ability to defeat him, but it would be very difficult to stop him from escaping. He had to use a surprising method. Fortunately, the scene was on a large-scale battlefield. It was easy for Kong Shinmu to fish in troubled waters and find a better opportunity. If it was a one-on-one battle in the wild, the other party might run away when they saw that the situation was not right. However, on the battlefield, Kong Shinmu could control it so that the other party had no chance to run away. "I'll go kill that Deputy General first, then guard that area." "Mo Ya, do you think I can make it in time?" Kong Shinmu asked. "As long as you kill that Deputy General within 3 days, you can make it in time," Mo Ya said gently. That area is being attacked fiercely now. It should be the other party's last attempt. According to the army's general's guess, the other party might retreat after this round of fierce attacks. You'll lose this opportunity then. Yes, I understand. Kong Xinmu nodded. Next, he planned to make a move and kill the deputy general of the Fu Shui clan, who was at Supreme God Stage 3. By the way, take care of your safety during this period. Don't leave the fortress. I'll be leaving first. Kong Xinmu instructed Moya, then left for the north gate of the fortress according to the coordinates she had provided. Moya seemed to be unable to hold back her laughter when she heard Kong Xinmu's words. However, she did not say anything. She felt Kong Xinmu gradually getting further away. Soon, he passed through a side door of the north gate of the fortress and queued up to leave the Torrent Fortress. After leaving the Torrent Fortress, a murderous aura followed. There were constantly trembling ripples of power that shook the surrounding seawater. It could be seen that an intense battle could erupt at any time in this region of the sea. Kong Xinmu quickly flew towards the target location. He transformed into a pitch-black divine dragon and revealed the aura of the Dragon Emperor at his peak. Sword Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash. Kong Xinmu used the Sword Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash as fast as he could and shuttled through space towards his destination. As the Level 3 Supreme God Fu Shui Deputy General was a little far away, it would take Kong Xinmu a long time to get there. Fortunately, he could use the Sword Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash. With the support of the power of the Galaxy Inheritance, Kong Xinmu's speed was extremely fast. It could even be said that he could travel 1,000 miles in an instant. Tens of thousands of miles away was the place where the Level 3 Supreme God Fu Shui Deputy General led his team to fight against the Torrent Fortress army. It was an underwater canyon, and the seawater was probably stained with blood. After flashing dozens of times, Kong Xinmu finally approached the underwater canyon. Then, he could smell the thick smell of blood around him. An unimaginably intense battle was going on in this area. There were probably dragon martial artists being sacrificed here at every moment. Of course, there were definitely many Fu Shui tribesmen being killed here at the same time. No matter what, Kong Xinmu's goal this time was to take down the culprit and kill the Level 3 Supreme God Fu Shui Deputy General. The battle here was basically led by the Fu Shui Deputy General. After all, the Fu Shui tribe did not have enough manpower. In a situation where there were battles on many fronts, it was impossible for them to send a super expert to every place. At the moment, no one else had accepted the mission to kill the Fu Shui Deputy General. After all, there were relatively few dragon martial artists who came here to train and reach the super divine dragon level. I hope everything goes well. Kong Xinmu thought to himself as he flew towards the canyon. Chapter 5004. Kong Xinmu charged into the light red undersea canyon. He could smell the thick stench of blood. Even Kong Xinmu felt uncomfortable. The battle between the dragon warriors and the foreign armies was too tragic. Kong Xinmu had never experienced such a large-scale battle before. He was in a heavy mood. He charged into the battlefield and found that it was really like a meat grinder. He could see many Dragon Emperor and even Dragon King level dragon warriors forming small teams, fighting against the water god phantom of the Fu Shui race. The corpses of the dragon warriors could be seen everywhere, as well as the destroyed water god phantom. An army of this level was basically led by the Dragon King, with the Dragon Emperor as the team leader. The Supreme God level warriors were the deputy commanders of the army. If such an army was in the Dragon Martial continent, just half of it would be enough to wipe out all the Dragon Emperor countries in the Dragon Martial continent. And now, the two armies of the Dragon God race and the Fu Shui race were fighting each other in this undersea canyon. The number of casualties in one day was comparable to the number of experts above the Dragon King level in dozens of the Dragon Emperor countries. This was a real meat grinder. Even King level and Emperor level experts wouldn't dare to say that they would have a 100% chance of surviving such a battle. And although Kong Xinmu was only a peak Imperial warrior, he was like a fish in water in this battlefield. Unless he found the powerful Super God level 3 Fu Shui race deputy general, Kong Xinmu would not encounter any threat. Kong Xinmu entered the battlefield directly. Because he had the aura of a peak Imperial warrior, no one from the Fu Shui race came to trouble him for the time being. The strength of a peak Imperial warrior was already at an extremely high level in such a battlefield. If they encountered such an opponent, they would basically report to an Imperial warrior team to surround and kill them. This was especially true for a peak-level emperor like Kong Xinmu who was acting alone. It was likely that from the moment Kong Xinmu entered the battlefield, he had already been targeted by the enemy. At any time, a small team of Fu Shui race's emperor might appear to surround and kill Kong Xinmu. But Kong Xinmu wasn't worried about this. This underwater canyon was too big. Up until now, he had not sensed the location of the Fu Shui race's level 3 Supreme God Deputy General. Moreover, there was a chaotic battle around him. Various powers from the Fu Shui race and the Dragon Gods race were exploding everywhere. This interfered with Kong Xinmu's senses, making it impossible for him to sense the target's location. Since that's the case, I'll devour some of the other Talisman Water Tribe's power first. Kong Xinmu decided to kill some of the ordinary Talisman Aqua race first. This way, he would be able to devour enough power to increase his resistance against the Talisman Aqua race's power. The Talisman Aqua race didn't just use water-based power. Many of them could use other elemental techniques. Otherwise, the Talisman Aqua race would be too easy to deal with in a battle. As long as one specialized in restraining water-based power, the Talisman Aqua race would be finished. In reality, although the Talisman Aqua race was born with water-based power, it was rare for them to use the Talisman Aqua race's power on the battlefield. On the battlefield, the Talisman Aqua race would use all sorts of other elemental techniques, but they wouldn't use water-based power. The water-based power was their natal power, and it was their strongest power. Therefore, they would usually be targeted and restrained. Over time, they would cultivate a unified set of other techniques on the battlefield. This way, they would be much more flexible on the battlefield. Therefore, Kong Xinmu could devour more of the power used by the Talisman Aqua race to increase his resistance against various powers. He had his eyes on a complete team of the Talisman Aqua race. There were a total of 12 Talisman Aqua race powerhouses, 2 Emperor-level and 10 King-level powerhouses. They were engaged in an intense battle with a team of 10 Dragon Martialists. Jiang Shenwu abruptly charged into the battlefield of the 2 squads in the form of a pitch-black divine dragon. 9th Stage Ultimate Dragon Explosion. The 9th-level Extreme Dao Drake Blast that was condensed from Devour energy directly blasted onto the Water God projection of a royal rank expert from the Talisman Water race, and then the terrifying force blasted the Water God projection into pieces. Immediately after, the devouring power started to devour the opponent's power and continuously integrated into Kong Xinmu's pitch-black divine dragon body. Earth Elemental Power, Devour. Kong Xinmu's devouring power erupted at this moment. Almost instantly, the power of the shattered Water God projection was absorbed into his body. When Kong Xinmu made his move, the surrounding Talisman Aqua race and Dragon Martialists were instantly shocked. The Emperor-level Talisman Aqua race powerhouse that Kong Xinmu had killed was a level 8 Imperial Warrior, close to the peak Imperial Warrior. Yet, he had been killed by Kong Xinmu in one move? This meant that the Black Divine Dragon that had suddenly appeared possessed power that was absolutely above the level 8 Imperial Warrior. No wonder he was a peak Imperial Warrior. Where's the Strangulation team? Call them over. Seeing that their team leader had been killed by Kong Xinmu in one move, the remaining 11 Talisman Aqua race powerhouses immediately retreated and shouted loudly. Facing the peak Imperial Warrior Kong Xinmu, they had no will to fight at all. They immediately planned to flee. While fleeing, they hoped that a strangulation team that specialized in dealing with peak Imperial Warriors would appear to stop Kong Xinmu. Unfortunately, Kong Xinmu's speed was too fast. 9th Stage Gem. 9th Stage Ultimate Hydra Dragon Blast. Jiang Shenwu's 9-layer Ruby Rock burst forth. Using the Voidwalker Ghost Tome's ability to conceal the power of the Ruby Rock, a total of 81 layers of Flood Dragon explosions were split up and blasted towards the 10 King-grade Talisman Water Tribe cultivators. Against these King-level Talisman Aqua race powerhouses, Kong Xinmu only needed 1 Hydra Dragon Blast to kill them. But just to be safe, he still used several Hydra Dragon Blasts to surround the opponent's Water God silhouette. At the same time, Kong Xinmu also used a Starry Isolation technique. The starry runes lit up and sealed off the surrounding space, leaving the Talisman Aqua race powerhouses with nowhere to escape. These 10 King-level Talisman Aqua race powerhouses have cultivated all sorts of techniques. There's a total of 6 different types of power. Devour them all. Kong Xinmu's devouring power swept through the entire field. As for the last level 6 Imperial Warrior, Kong Xinmu did not hesitate at all. He immediately attacked with the 9th stage Ultimate Hydra Dragon Blast and killed him. The 9th stage Ultimate Hydra Dragon Blast was currently Kong Shinmu's strongest technique. It was also his most commonly used technique. Chapter 5005. Kong Shinmu attacked violently and wiped out a small team of the Fu Shui tribe. This scene left the 10 dragon warriors dumbfounded. They thought that they were going to face a fierce battle. They didn't expect that a dragon warrior at the peak of the Dragon Emperor realm would appear out of nowhere and directly kill all the opponents. This was simply too violent. Among the 10 dragon warriors, there was a level 8 Dragon Emperor peak level 8 expert. However, this expert was extremely shocked when he saw how Kong Shinmu killed the 12 Fu Shui tribe members. It was not difficult for him to fight against the level 8 Emperor peak level 8 Fu Shui tribe member. However, he did not even dare to imagine that he could kill the 12 Fu Shui tribe members in an instant like Kong Shinmu had done. Was the difference between a Dragon Emperor peak level 8 and a Dragon Emperor peak level 8 really that big? Impossible. This Dragon Emperor peak level 8 expert had seen a Dragon Emperor peak level 8 expert before. In fact, many Dragon Emperor peak level 8 experts in his sacred land were on good terms with him. They had sparred with each other before, so it was impossible for there to be such a big difference. Now, he felt that the black dragon that had appeared could kill him with one move if he wanted to. If the Dragon Emperor peak level 8 expert that he had sparred with previously attacked him, he would be able to take at least 3 of his opponent's strongest attacks. Therefore, the difference was too obvious. He had encountered a genius who had reached the transcendent level 8 expert. In the knowledge of ordinary dragon warriors, such geniuses existed. When the Dragon Emperor peak level 8 expert was in the Dragon Emperor peak level 8, he could compete with and even defeat a transcendent level 1 expert. However, ordinary dragon warriors rarely saw such geniuses. This was because there might not even be one such genius in 100 dragon warriors. For example, Gu Xinyue was such a genius. If Gu Xinyue appeared here, she could also easily wipe out this small team of Fu Shui tribe experts. However, existences like Gu Xinyue were too rare. In the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Sacred Land, there were at least 300 dragon warriors at the Dragon Emperor peak level 8. However, only 3 to 5 of them could reach the transcendent level. Therefore, it was very unlikely for ordinary dragon warriors who were training outside to see such geniuses. Now, they were treating Kong Shinmu as such a genius. Brother, it's not wise for you to come to this battlefield to train. The Fu Shui tribe experts who are at the transcendent level 8 are here. At the thought of this, the middle-aged dragon martial artist on the 8th level of the Dragon Sovereign Realm immediately warned, "You should leave now. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult for you to escape when the Talisman Aqua Clan Strangulation team arrives." Moreover, there are 3 Supreme God-level Talisman Aqua Clan on this battlefield. Tribe of the Transcendent Fu Clan at Transcendent Clan at Tribe Experts at. When Kong Shinmu heard this news, his heart skipped a beat. He was somewhat surprised. According to the mission report, there was only one member of the Talisman Water Race who was at the 3rd level of the Transcendent God Realm. Hence, Kong Shinmu immediately asked, among the 3 Supreme God-level members of the Fu Shui clan, other than the Deputy General who is at Supreme God level 3, what level are the other 2? They're all at the 1st level of the Transcendent God Realm. The middle-aged dragon warrior on the 8th floor of the Dragon Emperor answered immediately. Since they were both at the 1st level of the Transcendent God stage, Kong Shinmu wasn't afraid. "Thank you, but I should be able to handle it." Kong Shinmu nodded at him, then turned around and flew away. The middle-aged dragon martialist on the 8th floor of the Dragon Emperor had transformed into a wind attribute divine dragon. When he saw Kong Shinmu turn around and leave without taking his words to heart, he immediately sighed. Young geniuses are so arrogant. It's easy for them to be at a disadvantage. Although the middle-aged dragon martialist on the 8th floor of the Dragon Emperor wanted to help Kong Shinmu, he couldn't do anything in the current situation. After all, he wasn't even a match for Kong Shinmu. How could he help Kong Shinmu? As for Jiang Shenwu, after leaving this place, he quickly sensed a few tyrannical auras rapidly flying towards him from the depths of the underwater canyon. That speed was quite fast, so fast that even Jiang Shenwu was a little surprised. Could it be one of the supreme god-level powerhouses? Kong Shinmu thought to himself and narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, he felt some movement in the starry small world on his wrist again. Since he was waiting for the group of powerhouses to arrive, Kong Shinmu didn't take any action. If that was the strangulation squad of the Fu Shui tribe, Zhang Shenwu would be able to kill them all and contribute his strength to the army. Therefore, Kong Shinmu took the opportunity to check the situation in the starry small world. He soon discovered that it was Gu Xinyue, Chu Yueqiang, Chen Chong, and Wei Xiaoning. The four of them had come out of the Starry Sky Legacy trial. Each of them had become supreme god-level powerhouses in the Starry Sky Legacy. Now that the four of them had gathered together, they seemed to be discussing some issues regarding the Starry Sky runes. In terms of the Starry Sky runes, they could obviously gain a lot from their discussion. At the same time, they seemed to want to come out. Kong Shinmu thought about it. If he let them come out now, wouldn't it be a good opportunity to see their strength? Therefore, after some consideration, Kong Shinmu displayed the Starry Sky runes and activated the Starry Small World. The power of the Starry Small World teleported the four of them out. Following Kong Shinmu's action, Gu Xinyue, Chu Yueqiang, Chen Chong, and Wei Xiaoning appeared beside Kong Shinmu one after another. As soon as they appeared, they were almost washed away by the seawater. However, they quickly displayed the Starry Sky runes and condensed a layer of the power of the Starry Sky Legacy to protect themselves. Smelling the strong smell of blood around them, the four of them frowned slightly. Now that we're on the battlefield, Kong Shinmu briefly explained the situation to the four of them and then reminded them, next, it's time to test the results of your cultivation. A few members of the strangulation team of the Fu clan will arrive soon. They'll be for you to practice. Then, Kong Shinmu pulled Gu Xinyue over. War Moon, you've stayed in the Starry Small World for more than a year. Something happened. Then, he told them about Zhao Qingtian's matter. Gu Xinyue did not feel anything. When she heard Kong Shinmu mention this matter, she could not help but pursed her lips and smiled. Not bad, not bad. He can really help me solve my problems. I've heard of this Zhao Qingtian before, but I've never interacted with him. He actually came to propose marriage to me directly. He really doesn't know what he's doing. Thank you so much for blocking that disgusting fellow for me. After all, the four of them were geniuses with rich combat experience. Soon, they figured out the current situation. Chapter 5006. When Gu Xinyue and the others came out of the Starry Sky Small World, they almost couldn't wait to try condensing the star runes in the outside world. Soon, star runes condensed around each of their bodies, flashing with the light blue light of the stars. Chen Chong and Wei Xiaoning used to be cultivators of the demon god tribe, but they later abolished the inheritance of the demon god tribe, which made them quite annoyed. But now, they had already cultivated the inheritance of the starry sky to the transcendent god level. Although it was only the first level of the transcendent god, for them, it was already a level higher than the previous peak of the demon emperor. They had made a great breakthrough. Most importantly, the use of the inheritance of the starry sky did not require them to transform into any other form. They did not need to transform into the body of the demon god, and they could also unleash 100% of their power in human form. Therefore, at this moment, although they could no longer transform into the body of the demon god, they still naturally condensed the star runes. After trying for a while, they found that the feeling was exactly the same as when they were in the starry sky small world. Therefore, they knew that they indeed had the combat power of the first level of the transcendent god level. Their eyes flashed with excitement as they looked in the direction where they sensed a few powerful auras flying from. As for Gu Xinyue and Chu Yueqiang, they did not transform into the form of the divine dragon because they knew very well that the use of the inheritance of the starry sky did not require them to transform into any form. Moreover, the most important thing for them now was to try out the power of the inheritance of the starry sky. Therefore, there was no need to transform into the form of the divine dragon. If they transformed into the dragon warrior, Gu Xinyue would already have the combat power of the first level of the transcendent god level. There would be no need for the next battle at all. As the four of them appeared, they surrounded Kong Shinmu like four little ants appearing around his divine dragon body. They did not attract anyone's attention at all. After all, Kong Shinmu was still in the form of a pitch-black divine dragon. He had a body of a divine dragon that was thousands of feet long and extremely huge. In comparison, Gu Xinyue and the other three were completely insignificant. Therefore, the talisman water race powerhouses that were rapidly approaching did not realize what they were about to encounter. They thought that they were just here to kill a slightly powerful dragon warrior. This dragon warrior was said to be able to instantly kill a Fu Shui tribe powerhouse at the 8th level of the Emperor level. He was so powerful that they had to mobilize the strangulation team. The strangulation squad had encountered such situations many times, so they were not unfamiliar with it. In the Dragon Martial Warrior Army, there were still many relatively strong genius Dragon Martial Warriors, including some army captains, who had strength close to that of a supreme god-level powerhouse. Every time such a being appeared, the strangulation team of the Fu Shui tribe, and the Divine Realm would be. From the beginning of the war between the armies until now, their strangulation team had killed 3 geniuses of the dragon gods. They were all close to the supreme god level, and some were even powerful dragon warriors who had reached the first stage of the supreme god level. And this was only one of the squads of the Fu Shui race's legion. There were a total of 7 people in this strangulation squad. They were the standard configuration of a strangulation squad. All 7 of them were peak emperor-level existences. Their existence gave the Fu Shui tribe an advantage in this battle. Very quickly, the 7 water tribe powerhouses emerged from the thick stench of blood. They were all shrouded in the illusions of giant water gods, and they appeared in front of Kong Shinmu and the others. From the moment they appeared, Kong Shinmu felt the space around him change. The void here seems to have been sealed. The reason why he used the word seemed was because Jiang Shenwu was completely capable of breaking through a void seal of this level. After all, the other party had cast a void seal over such a long distance, so the strength of the seal was naturally not that high. Moreover, Kong Shinmu's understanding of the space attribute void power far exceeded that of ordinary cultivators at his level. In fact, besides Kong Shinmu, Gu Xinyue, Chu Yueqiang, Chen Chong, and Wei Xiaoning all felt the surrounding void seal. However, they did not pay much attention to it. After cultivating the Starry Sky Legacy to level 1 of the Transcendent God Legacy, their understanding and perception of the space attribute void power surpassed that of ordinary people at their level. Using void seal in front of them? That was like showing off in front of an expert. Including Jiang Shenwu, it would be extremely easy for the 5 of them to break through the seal of the void. They would not encounter any difficulty at all. Of course, this level of void sealing power was more than enough to deal with an ordinary peak emperor level or even a first-stage supreme god. After all, the strangulation team had joined forces to cast it. It was a method to trap the enemy from afar. If they did not have this ability, how could the strangulation team kill the experts of the Dragon God's army? It was just that Kong Shinmu and the others did not take them seriously. 7 peak emperor level. I can test their power. Why don't I do it alone? When they saw that the other party was 7 peak emperor level, Chen Chong and Wei Xiaoning were tempted. To them, the current peak emperor level was too weak. In terms of strength, they could use the power of the Starry Sky Legacy at level 1 of the Transcendent God Legacy. It was already several times stronger than when they had cultivated the Demon God Legacy and reached the peak emperor level. It was not impossible for one person to fight 7 peak emperor level Water Talisman clan. However, Gu Xinyue and Chu Yueqiang did not want to miss this opportunity to train. They stood up and said, "We also want to fight all of them alone." Seeing this, Kong Shinmu could only say with a headache, "How about this? Each of you deal with 2 of them. Leave the one who looks stronger and seems to be the leader to Gu Xinyue." Hearing Kong Shinmu say this, the 4 of them reluctantly agreed. Each of them would deal with 2, and Gu Xinyue would deal with the strongest one. It seemed like a good distribution. Right now, they didn't have any better ideas, so they could only do as Jiang Shenwu said for the time being to distribute the loot. After all, it wasn't always possible to have such a suitable opponent appear. If he managed to kill his opponent this time, then the next opponent would definitely be a stronger one. As for what level of opponent it was, he didn't know. This was a real battlefield of the race army. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.